Good morning, I'm Matt with Medina Minute. Today we're going to stop in 23 Public Square, known as Town Square Commons. Now this building has quite a bit of history in Medina.
Hi, this is George Sam. I'm Program Manager for Mainstreet Medina, and welcome to Medina Minute. This is my first opportunity interviewing, and I have the honor of interviewing Matt Wiederhold, which is normally in this seat, and he normally does the interviews and has been doing it for 5 years. And I think this is the first time that you've been interviewed.
It is. It is very odd. I now understand why people say they're so nervous.
It is. It's nerve-wracking. I
It
just
is.
did one.
Yes, you did, and you did very well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you'll do great because you seem to be so engaging. How hard was it for you to do interviews for that many years, that many people?
For me, it's not hard because I love talking about other people and learning about them. So this is very awkward for me to talk about myself. But part of what we try to do with Medina Minute is we want to talk about the person and their business, but it's more just about them. You know, people that we see on the street or we see in the square at events or business owners, but who's the person behind that? And that's what I kind of always try to figure out. So for that part, it's pretty easy because I'm naturally curious.
Yeah.
It's just hard sometimes when someone doesn't respond with a lot of answers that you just have to keep throwing stuff out.
Pull information out
and find something
And you're not
to
going to be like
discuss.
that, right?
Absolutely not. Well, it depends on the question. I don't know.
That's true. Speaking of questions, so where are you originally from? You're not a Medina person.
No, I grew up in a very small town called Temperance, Michigan, just north of Toledo. Our house is about a quarter mile from the state line. So I remember as a kid, we had a Toledo mailing address, a Toledo phone exchange, but it was actually in Michigan. But I grew up, at that time it was very rural, which is a hard word for me to say. I struggled with my R's as a kid.
You'd never know it.
I had to go to speech therapy. So it was very rural, and I was kind of a loner as a kid, so I was just out running through the woods and like raising chickens and stuff like that.
So outdoors.
Outdoors, yeah, because there wasn't a whole lot to do. You know, we didn't have video games. I'm terrible at video games anyway. It was childhood of the 70s, 80s. You go to the mall, to the video arcades, and I was terrible. Like Pac-Man was about my extent. So I grew up in this small town, and then I was always kind of fascinated by cities. And then I finally moved to Toledo in the mid-90s. And then I've now been an Ohioan longer than I was a Michigander.
Is that right? So you graduated from high school.
Yes, I did.
And then you went on to college.
Yes.
In Michigan or Ohio?
No, Ohio. So living so close to the state line, I graduated from Bedford High School. So Bedford is a township. There's Temperance, Lambertville, and Samaria, but Bedford High School. Being so close to Toledo, there was an agreement with the University of Toledo that you pay in-state tuition. Nice. So ended up going to University of Toledo. Had no idea what I was going to study.
Okay.
You know, it was really cool. One of the things that I give a lot of credit to my sister for what I do today. I was junior or senior in high school, and she was already in college, also at University of Toledo, or TU, we used to call it then. And I thought she was the coolest sister in the world. She said, "Why don't you skip school and come to class with me today?" I'm like, all right, I'm down with this. So we did, and I was always fascinated by art and history. My grandparents had National Geographic, so I was flipping through the stories of King Tut and everything.
Yeah.
And one of my sister's classes was Art History 101. Professor was Carolyn Putney today. And I was fascinated. We were talking about Greek pottery, and I'm like, this is cool. So I really had no idea, but I ended up majoring in art history. For me, my focus was on American art and architecture. And I've always said that my career has been kind of a gypsy of cobbling a lot of things together. I've had a lot of different jobs, but they've always kind of supported and led into the next one. So I grew up as a kid playing in the woods, absolutely no idea or dream about what I was going to do when I grew up.
So after college, what was your first job? Was it in art history?
No, so while I was in college, we had a local pharmacy, Prairie Drug, back in Temperance, Michigan. And my sister happened to be dating the owner's son, so I got my first job there. Convenient, yeah. I was the in-store manager of Video Connection. That's when you still actually rented VHS tapes. So my first job was that. When I was in college, I was also working part-time at the reference library at the art museum. Because as
nice.
our history major, Toledo Museum of Art, one of the best museums in the country, a lot of our classes were held on site there. So I worked in the library, so I got to know, do a lot of research and stuff. At the same time, I was doing community theater and doing writing on the side, like art show reviews for the city paper. So I was doing like 5 different jobs at once. Graduated, ended up getting a job working for the museum and education department. Then I went into public relations and marketing. Left there, did managed healthcare marketing stuff for a year, and absolutely hated it. And then I had the opportunity, I was very involved in my neighborhood in Toledo, and they wanted to start a Mainstreet program. So the director of the organization said, hey, I think you'd be a really good person for this. But it all kind of built, like I loved art and history, and then I got to study it, and then I got to work in a place where people came to study it. And then I got to work in the place, and then it kind of built on being involved in my community and loving old places. So it's always been kind of this snowball of fortuity that, yeah, let's do that next.
That's awesome. So the whole concept of community and preservation and all that was a passion for you, and you did it, and that kind of started this career.
Yeah, a lot of times when I do a talk or a presentation, people say, how did you get interested in old buildings or old things? And I think it's twofold. My mom's best friend when I was growing up was an antique dealer. So a lot of times I would go with her to antique shows all around Ohio, Indiana, Michigan. So it was cool for me I like old things, I collect old things, but I like to look at it like, how is it used? When you look at a beautiful piece of antique china, why did somebody buy that pattern? Or I used to play volleyball at Whiskey Island up in Cleveland, and it was a landfill. So I'd be walking around, and there'd be like a shard of a plate, and look at was this someone's anniversary china? And what's the story behind this? And that's what I loved learning. And then my dad, he worked at a GM transmission plant, so we worked all different shifts. But a lot of times on weekends, he would say, let's get in the truck, and we would just drive through the country of Monroe County and go explore abandoned farmhouses. So again, the stories, like why did someone build this beautiful house and have this farm and raise a family here, and then they left? Yeah. So for me, it was kind of that idea of keeping the past alive and learning about the history of that place. And it's always been fascinating to me. So then moving into the Old West End in Toledo, buying my first house and restoring that. Now we're 10 in. It's kind of a sickness.
10 houses?
Yeah.
Restored?
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm a serial rehabber, I guess.
Okay.
But for me, it's the process of learning about the house, but also the people that lived there. Why did they build it? Why did they choose this doorknob? Why did they like this kind of hinge over this kind of hinge?
Interesting.
It's a dark rabbit hole. It really is, yeah.
Well, and I can see that passion in your work today. So what brought you to Medina with all of that history and all of that background? How did you end up here? And when did you end up here?
Sure. So I started Neighborhoods in Partnership. It was a community development corporation in Toledo. I was there for a couple years, started a Mainstreet program. And at the time, I was coming to Cleveland a lot because we owned a big house in Toledo and we were looking for furniture. Okay. Cleveland used to be the place on Lorraine Avenue, the Antiques District. Yes. We were coming here all the time. Yeah. So finally, one day my partner and I looked at each other like, why don't we just move to Cleveland? It's an hour and a half from Toledo. Both our families were there. So we did. And he was in human resources. I was in community development. It was kind of like, okay, who's going to get a job first? So I reached out to Heritage, Ohio. I said, do you know of anybody hiring? And they said Detroit Shoreway. So I sent my resume in to Detroit Shoreway Community Development on the west side of Cleveland. And I got a call from Jeff Ramsey, who was the director at the time. And he offered me the position. So this was my position. I was in charge of marketing and coordinating events with the Lorraine Avenue Antiques District. Okay. I was in charge of the storefront renovation program, so restoring commercial buildings on Detroit Avenue and then putting businesses in them. Nice. I was in charge of the initial restoration, kind of the groundwork of the Capitol Movie Theater. Wow. And then working with the community. And I remember, this is something you should never say in an interview, but after he said all that, I said, dude, you literally just described my dream job. Yeah. Those are all my passions.
Exactly, I was going to say that.
I mean, it totally is. So we moved there in 2003. I was there from 2003 till 2008. ended up kind of morphing into the Gordon Square Arts District.
Nice.
So I was like early project manager for that. And honestly, I got burned out. Like, it was a lot. There was a lot going on. The West Side, when I started working there, was not a place that you went by choice.
Right.
But now I look at it today, it's like the hottest market.
The arts
It is,
district.
yeah. But it was like, man, I'm stressed out and tapped out. I need to get back to my small town roots.
Yeah.
Reached out to Heritage Ohio again. I was like, do you know anybody who's doing a Main Street program? And they said Medina had just applied to be a Main Street. So I interviewed for that and ended up here.
In 2008.
Started working here in 2008.
Okay.
And then moved here in 2011, I think.
So you moved here a few years later, so you
Yeah.
did commute for a while.
Yeah, and it was funny, literally straight shot 30 minutes down I-71. It would take me longer to get from my house in Cleveland to the airport, house in Cleveland to the interstate, and then exit to the middle of town than the time on the expressway,
Okay.
just because of traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so commuted for a couple years, and then ended up moving here, bought my first house here. We moved here on Lafayette, restored that, took a little time off, thought, you know what, there's something else I want to do in my life. There was another organization that I really loved their mission. And for me personally, that time in our history, 2016, there was a lot going on. And I wasn't sure how what I was doing in Medina, Ohio with all of this was going to make a difference for people on a bigger scale, or at least I thought. So I went to the Diversity Center of Northeast Ohio. I was there for a little over a year in fundraising and development. Wasn't the right fit for me. Opportunity came back here, and I came back in 2017.
Cool. So a lot of people don't know that you left. They assume that you've been doing this for
No, I
20
took a little sabbatical.
That's good.
Added to my skills bank of development.
Took a breath.
Took a breath, but then came back
Re-energized.
because I love this community and believe in it so much. And it's my job, but it's also very personal. You know, as you know, and as you're going to find out, it is your job, but it's the day-to-day interactions that we have with community members and business owners. We know their families, we know about their kids, we hear their stories.
Right.
So it's not just 9 to 5 doing events and checking off lists.
True.
It's checking in on people and being part of a bigger picture. And for me, that was very important.
Good to hear. So as far as your new career now, and you moving on,
Yeah.
what interested you in that, and are you going to stay here?
Yeah, everyone asks that.
Where are you going, and are you staying?
No. We're definitely staying here. We'll still reside here. I like to look at both sides of a situation. So one of my favorite phrases is the gift and the curse of something. The curse of COVID and everything that we went through for the past 2 years, it changed literally how we do everything, both personally and professionally. The gift, though, I think, is it has proven to us that there are different ways to do things that we would never have considered if we didn't have to.
That's true.
You know, so working remotely now is a viable option. So Heritage Ohio is based in Columbus. I might go down there once a week, just check in with staff, but so much can be done virtually, either through a computer or for the phone calls.
Good.
For me, what's exciting about it is I grew up as a little hick in southern Michigan running through old farmhouses, but that instilled something in me that there's a human connection to a place. Mm-hmm. So now I get to take my passion and my education and effectively support communities across the entire state to help them realize the value and the benefits of their communities and help them make them better places.
Yeah.
So that's one big part of it. The other side is the whole preservation and saving places aspect, you know, and that's something that we're kind of going through locally. What's important, what's not. Those are all stories that need to be investigated, and it's sometimes people just look at a building as a building. It doesn't have to be the oldest building. George Washington doesn't have to have slept there for it to be important. Right. So I think what I'm excited about is working with communities and getting them to understand, how does this little parcel of real estate fit into the big picture? And if that goes away, how does that affect your community?
Yeah, that sounds great. So you're basically staying with the same organization you were,
Yes.
moving up a level, so you'll still
Yeah.
kind of be connected in Medina.
Oh, absolutely.
Main
Yeah.
Street.
So part of my role, there's 3 full-time staff people. Director of Revitalization oversees all the Main Street programs in Ohio. So right now there's about 23 full-time programs and probably 25 to 30 affiliates. So about 50 communities doing the same thing that we're doing here. So my role will be supporting the staff person, but also supporting the communities, trying to find funding opportunities and support things like that.
Yeah.
The other side, Director of Preservation, is working with them on incentive programs, tax credit programs, so that people can invest in properties and prove that it's generally more cost effective to keep that building and restore it than it is to tear down and build new. So it's doing what I've been doing here, well, essentially what I've been doing for 20 years,
Right.
just gone up a
Huge
big level
scale.
though. Yeah.
You will be great.
Yeah,
I know it.
thank you.
So what do you
Thank
do for fun? You're not going to have any time, but
I won't have any
if you
time.
did, what would you do, and what do you love doing?
I love doing a lot of things. Taking my dog for a walk. I love walking through Spring Grove Cemetery. I mean, my dog is little, so she can only go so far before she's worn out. But I love walking through the cemetery because I like looking at the different, I guess I'm a history dork.
Yeah.
You know, looking at the names, and I love looking at the gravestones, and it's like, oh yeah, I've heard that name, that street was named after that person, but it's also such a beautiful, peaceful
It
place.
is very beautiful.
But I also love working out in the yard. That's one of my great passions is gardening and playing with plants and redoing the yard. And I don't know if I get that from both of my grandmothers were big gardeners. You know, my dad's mom was a big vegetable gardener. Mom's mom was more of a flower gardener. But there's just something about getting your hands in the dirt and checking out of everything else.
Right.
You know, and I'm clearly not a patient person. No one would ever call me that. But there's something about gardening and landscaping that I'm going to put this seed or this plant here, and I know what I want it to look like, but I'm going to have to wait a couple years to see if that happens.
Yeah.
So a lot of it's that. But I also...
It sounds meditative.
It is. Like the dog will lay in the back deck. I can hear the church bells, so I kind of keep track on time between the courthouse and the church. You know, I put on my 70s rock and just go out there and play with plants. I'm also a serial thrifter. I don't buy so much anymore because we're kind of out of space. But for me, again, it's fun just to walk through the thrift store or the antique store and say, hey, that's cool. What is that? Yeah.
Cool. You always got asked this question, so I thought I would ask you.
Okay.
So, in your future,
Yes.
what is your kind of next step, or where would you like to end up if it's not in Medina?
Oh, we talk
Where would you
about
like
this
to
all
end
the time. Like if it were feasible, Josh would say we're retiring now and we're moving to Mexico.
Okay.
You know, we love going to Puerto Vallarta. We do that once or twice a year.
Do that every
I don't
year.
know if it's realistic to retire there. We love going there. We've been going there maybe 4 years, but even in that time, it has really changed and become a lot more commercialized. So I think in the future, I think I would have a hard time leaving the country, you know, permanently.
Yeah. That's tough.
Like I'm okay moving south where it's warmer. This up and down weather stuff is enough. But eventually
something about the
retiring,
islands
yeah,
that you like.
yeah. I guess just chilling out, you know, and having time to just do what I want to do. That being said, I'm not generally the kind of person that just sits around. So I don't know.
So you'll find
And
something to
I'll
do.
find something, and honestly, George, that's kind of been my life. Like, I'm gonna do this, and then, okay, now this opportunity comes along. Let's see where that goes. And okay, that led to this. I kind of feel that's how the rest of my life is gonna be. That may not be a good thing.
We'll find out.
But yeah, we'll find out.
It's an adventure.
I don't know. It's always an adventure.
Well, on behalf of everyone in Medina, I just have to say thank you for all the dedication and the years that you've provided us.
Thank you.
You've done a great job, obviously.
Thank you. You know, I appreciate that. I really do appreciate it. But it has been a community effort. You know, when I was hired in 2008, there wasn't a lot going on here. We had a lot of vacant storefronts. That was the beginning of the recession. But we had a lot of people in this town that love this place, and we still do.
Yeah.
People came together. They said, "Okay, here's what we're going to do," and we did it. And it didn't happen overnight, you know. So people often say, "What do you do?" I say, "My job is to herd cats. Our job is to
That's so
get
true.
people going in the same direction."
Yeah.
And it worked. You know, people bought in and they invested, and business owners put in their personal money and they set aside their time for committee meetings, and they put their hands on stuff, and we got to do this, you know. And today Medina is a pretty well-known destination. It's really rather odd to me. You can go, not that I've traveled the entire world, but you can literally be in Mexico and talk to somebody who's an American, and they say, oh, where are you from? I'm from Medina. Oh, I know, I've been to Medina, or my daughter lives there. It is odd how many connections have come through this town. Kind of freaky.
It is.
But it's exciting to see what happens next.
Yeah.
You know, what happens with Southtown? What's the next big thing? Who knows? And that's part of the excitement and also part of the frustration.
Yes.
Because we don't know, but let's see where it goes.
So, advice. I'll be taking over the reins in
Yes, you will.
a month. So, what advice can you give me, and where do you think we should go from here as a community?
Oh, well, I guess my advice is don't be afraid to put yourself in a timeout. It's okay to say, you know what, I need to walk away for a few minutes. Don't respond immediately.
Take a breath, think it
Because
out.
you know some of the
over.
emails and messages that come in, walk away, absorb it. I always try and look at something as, doesn't matter what kind of day I'm having. I have to think what kind of day is that person having.
Sure.
If someone sends us something that we may not like, we need to take a pause and understand where they're coming from.
We don't get those kind of.
We never get those kind of comments.
No.
So we get them all the time. So I think, I guess in some ways, I get teased that I'm a bit of a Pollyanna or rose-colored glasses sometimes. I'm always going to try and find the positive, at least outside the office. Find the positive approach to something.
Yeah.
You know, and I think for your own sanity, find the good in it. Kind of like COVID. Frankly, it sucked on every level. But out of it, we got to revisit things, restructure things, and I think in the end, it worked out better. And it's something we never would have taken the pause to do. Where do I see Medina? I hope it just continues doing good stuff and the community's supporting it. And I hope, Denny Simpson always ends every council meeting with remember to be kind. And I think that's the biggest thing, that people are so tense and on edge today that we say things or we write things on social media that we don't understand how that affects somebody else. You know what, if you order something from a restaurant and maybe it's not exactly correct, call the darn restaurant. Don't go on Medina Moms and blast that restaurant. It's a simple mistake. We all make mistakes,
Yeah.
you know. So as a community,
Be kind. I
be
like that.
kind and support each other. You know,
That's great.
it doesn't help anyone to tear someone else down.
True. So you're going to be around a while. You'll still be in
Yes.
Medina. You're still going to volunteer, I hope, and
Yes.
help us out.
Once I figure out what I'm actually doing, I will be around. You know, I've had the great fortune to be in this position twice, and I came back because I love this town and I want to see it succeed, and I want to see you and the staff succeed and the program succeed.
Awesome.
This is my home. Kind of the fun thing is, in this position, we have to watch what we say and what we do, and I'm not going to turn into like crankshaft curmudgeon. But sometimes there are things that you just really want to say and you can't. So there will be a little bit of joy in really being able to see.
Take the hat off.
Yeah, take the
Wear
hat off a
another
little
one.
bit and say, really, come on.
Good for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you again for everything you've done for Medina, and thank you
pleasure.
for everything you've done for me. You've been a great mentor.
Thank you.
And I could never fill your shoes, but I will certainly give it a shot.
You know what? You have your own shoes to fill, man. Do
I will
you?
try.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Very nice interviewing you, and I wish you the best.
Thank you. I appreciate it.